All right, good morning, Faith Bible Chapel and friends. We want to welcome you here on another session of Three Pastors Keeping It Real and keeping it 100, actually. We started with real, we changed to 100, and I'm just not that hip. So I'm trying to be, but I just don't make it all the time. But with that, we've got Georgia Owens, who is also ordained, so we've got Three Pastors Keeping It Real here, and Pastor Al will be up shortly because he is our MC and really all-around Jedi Master. So we're going to talk today, though, about something really important, and that is our witness. And I think that's going to be kind of fun. Honestly, it's I think probably one of the things that we need really a desperate need for today.
Yeah, for me, sometimes I feel like I fail in that. But really, I relate our witness to our faith walk.
Yeah.
And so for me, our witness is really how we walk in our faith.
That's good. It's good. And I honestly, I think it's a pretty big topic, honestly. And I was going to, and I think this is the passage that everybody goes to with this. And I was going to read it real quick. And then I'm going to get legalistic here because I've got a pre-law degree. And so, but I love the passage that says that, and it's, let's see here. So I'm just trying to look at it. And they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb. And this is Revelation 12:11, talking about the accuser, right? And that's Satan. Satan is the accuser of the brethren. He accuses them day and night. Matter of fact, I'll back up to 10. And this is John writing, and he says this. He says, "And I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, 'Now the salvation and power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come, for the accuser of our brothers has been thrown down.'" I can't wait till he gets thrown down. But he gets thrown down, who accuses them day and night before our God. Just like Job, right? He goes to God and he starts accusing Job. "And they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony." And so I think that's really good. And I know you were hitting on what I think is one of two sides of the sword of this. Okay, and one of the things that I got out of pre-law degree is that you go to court a lot and you actually witness and yeah, I didn't mean to use that word, but you actually watch court proceedings. Right. And there's two sides of a witness, and one side of the witness is I'm testifying to what I've seen God do. Right. The most compelling evidence given in a court is what?
Your witness.
An eyewitness, right?
Exactly.
So if somebody was there who saw it and they testify as to what they saw, that's like the most compelling evidence of what has taken place. And so that can either convict you or that can condemn you. But on the other hand, I think one side of the witness that is very compelling for us is when we share what we have seen God do.
Right.
And so it's our eyewitness of what he's done. I think that's one of them. And I think the other one is what you brought up.
Well, and really they're hand in hand.
Uh-huh.
Because your trust in God leads to your faith.
Uh-huh.
The stronger faith.
Yes.
And you begin to share what God has done, which is your witness to what he's done. So they kind of go hand in hand, but definitely we have to share what he's done in order for others to see. Because, what happens to me relates to some, but that's not necessarily what would relate from what comes from you. Mm-hmm. So that's the word of our testimony.
Yep.
Will relate to different ones.
Exactly.
So that's the witness part.
Exactly.
So simply, witnessing is just sharing your experience with our Lord Jesus Christ and what he done for you, And that brings me back because we've been talking to the youth about worship. How can you worship a God that you don't know? How can you witness about a Jesus that you really never experienced?
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, you have to have that relationship so you could tell others.
Yeah.
So.
See, and then there's the other side that I think you started with is that then the other side of the witness is what do people witness when they watch you and me?
Right.
And how we live. And that's where that faith aspect of how we act has everything to do with what we truly believe.
Absolutely. And for me, it's really hard because first thing you said is I go legalistic because my law degree, and that is a word I'm very scared of because of my background. Mm-hmm. But also I feel like some people can get judgmental over the witness part of people, of Christianity. And so for me, I always want people to know up front, I'm not perfect. Don't look at me, but I hope you see the Jesus in me.
Yeah.
And that's not always going to look perfect.
No.
But if you see what he's done for me and the faith that I have in him, the witness that I have for what he's done for me, hopefully that's what you'll see.
That's good. That's real good. Because we can judge real quick. You know what I'm saying? And they put us folks on a pedestal, which that's not right. You know what I'm saying? But that's good. I'm glad you brought that up, Pastor Georgia.
Well, and I do want to say that Sunday was really perfect in the aspect of some testimonies and really seeing the witness of what God's done in people's lives. For those of you that were here or were online, you saw Pastor Manny had some veterans up here and their testimony, what happened to them in service. One of the things my husband said to me before and after was that he didn't really see God's hand on his life until he looked back at what God had done. And not only in the military, but through the years until he came to a knowledge of Christ. And then he was able to look back and see God's hand was on him the whole time.
The whole time, exactly.
Yeah, well, he survived, and the fact that he survived it all is so miraculous. And that could not happen unless God's hand was on him in a really obvious way.
Exactly. I think about pop life, and I think about my life on the streets. I didn't know God's hands was on me. I should have been dead. You know what I'm saying? But now I look back, I'm like, Father, you've been with me the whole entire time. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah,
it's a pretty amazing thing. When I was around 3, and I mean, I was conning, man. My mom asked if I wanted to go out while she's hanging up clothes, right? But I knew that the Oreos were above the stove, so man, I'm like, "No, you go ahead." Right, 3 years old, and I remember. And so,
an Oreo. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. I'm all about those Oreos, you know. So I know they're above the stove. So I literally remember looking back, and the couch was against the picture window that looked in our backyard. And I looked, and Mom was hanging up clothes. So I'd go to the kitchen table. I take the chair. I slide it over. I'm climbing up to get the cookies. But when I do that, I put my foot on the little knob that turns on the burner.
Oh, man.
And that was before they treated, literally that year, Dick Van Dyke did a series of commercials about treating clothes so that they don't, I had a cotton shirt on and it just went woof, and I shrieked. My dad was on a tractor, heard my shriek over the tractor. He covered 100 yards in about 4 bounds, and he was only 5'8". He puts the fire out with his hand, gets me. Now, we're out in the Pocono Mountains on dairy farm country, I mean, literally our high school was 600 students from 7th grade to 12. It was a combination of 7 little towns.
Wow.
But believe it or not, less than an hour away was one of the premier burn units in the country.
Oh, right on.
And so I end up at Robert Packer Hospital and burnt at that time on 25% of my body. And they did a skin graft and other things, and I remember all that as well, and survived. And believe it or not, I was a plump little kid until then. Now I'm returning back to my youth.
But, so you were 4?
So I was 3, I think.
3 when that happened.
Yeah, I think so.
So see, I was 4 when this happened.
Yeah.
And that was another issue of being in a new neighborhood in Alabama, and a serviceman was putting in an AC unit. My mom didn't know where the hospital was or anything, and when that happened, it was a lot of bleeding, and he took us to a hospital that was predominantly African American hospital.
Wow.
And they wrapped me in sheets and things like that, but got the best care, but they couldn't sedate me because of being so young, but they were holding me down, just did an awesome job. But again, it's kind of like God's hand on you at the moment of what's going on in your life, even at such a young age.
Exactly.
Well, I wish God's hands was on me when I got stuck under that gate.
Oh.
I love that story. I love that story.
Anyway, yeah, he kind of removed his hand, and my mama hands was on me then. So
yeah. You better tell the story though, because now
I don't want to tell the story. No,
yeah, but you brought
that's
it
right.
up.
I know.
So some of you has to.
No.
Yeah,
No.
I'm just saying they're all wondering now. You're leaving them all hanging.
Yeah, and that's okay. They'll forgive me. They'll forgive me.
Come to church, you'll hear those
There
stories.
you go.
Oh man. So, but it's so true, and just that we're going to talk a little bit this Sunday about the fact that God chose us before the world was created,
Right.
and so our path was set before the world was even created. God knew us, knew our decisions, knew everything about us, knew everything we'd experience.
Right.
It was all set in motion.
Right.
And that's a complete perfect kind of tense that's used there. So that means that, it's done.
Right.
Can't be undone.
Right.
So that's some pretty intense stuff.
It's kind of a negative connotation to that from some people, though, because it's like, well, if he's already done that, he already knows, and why do I even try? But you have to understand the free will that comes with that can take you off the path.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But he has only good and perfect will for your life, only good and perfect things.
Yeah.
But you do have the choice to take that other road.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can really kind of get yourself hooked into the Word of God and realize what He does have for you and that good and perfect will, you're not always going to do it right.
Yeah.
Not always going to do it perfectly.
Well, He knows when you're going to refuse to obey.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. Is it really comes down to who you know God to be.
Yep.
Because that's where the negative comes in, is our distrust.
Yep.
It's our distrust that makes.
But He shapes us even in those moments. We don't completely turn our back, but when we've made a mistake and gone a different direction, He actually shapes and refines our heart. He gets out other things that we didn't even know were in there.
Yeah.
And it helps us to become more faithful and trust Him even more.
He knew I was going to be plotting on those Oreos and the decision I was going to make. Seriously, He did. He knew.
Do you still like Oreos?
So, I love Oreos.
I
dip them in milk until they're soft. The Oreos didn't burn me. I burnt me. I knew that even then, man. So Oreos didn't do. They weren't the problem. I was. So, but that's the thing, is that as we look at God and His plan, is that He knows when we're going to disobey, and He still forms that perfect plan with that in mind, and and He makes all things beautiful in its time.
And that's the beautiful thing, is that nothing that we can ever do can catch God off guard or shock Him.
Yep.
Because He already knows. You know what I'm saying? And that still blows me away.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and that's the thing, I think, when we're looking at who God is in His perfect plan, there are those who think, well, that's because He forces me into a mold. It's like, no, He knows when you'll choose yes and when you'll choose no.
Right.
And then He has it all planned accordingly.
Right.
And that's the beauty of free will.
Exactly.
Our witness for Him is really important, though, because I think sometimes knowing that kind of knowledge, we can become hardened, thinking, well, it's all laid out and I've made these mistakes and I'm not worthy. And so you begin to get in your own head and let the enemy have a playground in there. And so it begins to make you isolate further away from God. And then that takes you further into this downward spiral. And so what I would say to someone that's in that moment of, well, why bother? I'm just going to go ahead and, disconnect myself, is right now in this moment, get on your knees and say, Lord, I believe that you can bring me out of this. I believe I want to be a witness for you. I want to let people know that I believe in you and that I love you and I trust you. So bring me out of this despair, bring me out of this moment, so I can let them know that you've done this for me.
Exactly. That's real good. Go ahead with you.
Oh, okay. Well, and I agree with that. I think the thing for all of us is, the Bible tells us that the gifts of God are without repentance, which means that He is never sorry about what He's gifted you with. And whatever calling God has placed on you, He did so knowing whatever pit you could be in today. And so, like you were saying earlier, He's never shocked or surprised or disappointed because He knew the path and the decision you'd make. But the beautiful thing about the truth is that He set that all up for you. All you got to do is walk in it, regardless of the he didn't get shocked. That didn't throw his plan off. You can't throw his plan off.
Right.
So that's part of what's going to equip you to be effective in the calling that he's placed on you. And I mean, the great thing about our folks is we've all been there in the bottom pit.
Right.
And we've seen God elevate us out. One piece of sage advice, it's not a scriptural quote, but I think it's a good point of wisdom that if you find yourself in a hole, stop digging.
Right.
Stop.
Yeah, stop digging. And because that's the enemy and our fallen nature is like, well, I've already messed up this bad. I might as well just, and you are really under a deception at that point, because all you're doing is just taking more damage and hurt upon yourself. You're just digging it deeper, and sooner or later you're going to have enough to where you're going to want to get out. So why not stop when you're only 20 feet deep rather than going for the full 50?
Right. And I'm glad y'all brought this up, because a lot of times, when we're in this type of situation, we don't have the strength or the ability to be that witness that God called us to be if we're broken. You know what I'm saying? If we're not in that good place mentally, and our mistakes. This is what I think a lot of people do, and I'm one of them. We try to allow our mistakes to define who we are, but our mistakes don't really define who we are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Somebody preached about that a week or two ago.
Yeah, I wonder who was that. But anyway, so in Matthew 28:19, Jesus tells us to go therefore and make disciples.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? When we witness and tell people what Jesus done for our life or in our life, it creates a hunger in them. You know what I'm saying? Okay, if God can do that for them, well, he could do that for me.
That's exactly it.
And a lot of times we don't feel like God can use us or that we're worthy. But by the word of our testimony, go therefore and make disciples. Some people think, oh, that's hard. I'm not a preacher. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a pastor. But, it's sharing your testimony. And there's not a story. Rochelle Trent said this, without the test, there's not a testimony. And so we're all tested.
Yep.
But I remember one of the, I'm kind of an outgoing personality, but it still was very hard for me to get up in front of a group of people and share. And I remember being very nervous about things. And the more that I relied on God and not myself, the more comfortable I became. And that's not to say that I'm not still nervous before, a big conference or whatever. But the more I rely on God, especially in the moment, once you get up there and you say, God, speak through me, not my words, your words, it just becomes this blur. You don't even remember, for me, I don't remember a lot of what I said, but I do rely on the things that I've been through to come across and let women know, look, you're not the only one experiencing these. This is what has happened in my life. This is what has gone on, and there's a lot of sorrow, and there's a lot of tests, and there's a lot of things that I never thought I would walk through. But in the midst of that, let me tell you what God did.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me tell you what he is still doing, and let me tell you what he says he's going to do.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, and one of the reasons, and this is the thing, is that we know about these things because we've had to walk out of the pit. We've been in the dungeon. We've been without hope. And where there's just no way out of this. And we've seen God come through. And I was saying, when you're in the pit, it's really hard to be a witness, and that's absolutely true. But if you're in the pit right now, let me tell you, God delivering you out of the pit will make you a tremendous witness. Exactly. And that's where the power of the testimony is that he got you out of the pit. And that's what you have to remember, is that God will get you out of the pit. And, and I'm in a really close, dear situation right now where the potential of this testimony and the impact that this could have on lives could really far surpass anything that my life has produced. And I pray passionately that that's going to be the reality of that testimony.
Yeah. You could have never told me 20 years ago that God was going to have me in ministry of any kind.
Yeah.
Seriously. Yep. It's like, and to have put me in a position to found a ministry, to birth a ministry. I double, no way. But to surrender yourself completely to Him and say, use me however you want, and for Him to guide each step and to give you vision and say, I want you to do this. I remember you talking about the building, Kip's building, and Him speaking that into you. And that's the way He works, through His word and through vision and dreams. He will show you. And if you're just willing to put aside that fear, love expels all fear, right? So if you love Him and trust Him, He will expel that fear for you to walk in the calling that He has for you. And I would have never dreamed that I would have been anywhere near doing what He's doing now, and being able to step out of it now and say, okay, Lord, I know, you've told me to step aside and there's something new, and to trust Him in whatever that newness is. Right. But that's, again, your testimony and your witness of saying, He's done this. Yep. He's still in the work. Yep. He's still doing something, and I'm all on board. I'm on that roller coaster as far as He wants to take me.
Yeah, I'll tell you, sometimes the bottom drops out.
You saying that, thinking about your life, Mom, or Pastor Georgia, without you even much saying the word, your life is a testimony. It's a witness. You know what I'm saying? Just seeing how God moved you from this situation, which was a bad situation, you know what I'm saying, to where you at now. And I'm going to say this now, it's a miracle in itself. Yeah. Because a lot of people don't get out like that. Yeah.
Or a young man with no father in Compton.
Exactly. There you go. Or somebody that get burnt bad for some Oreos. You know what I'm saying? Yep.
Yeah, don't be selling out to Oreos.
Right.
You'll get burned.
It's crazy, the common backgrounds that we have in certain ways, not only the some of the religious background, but even the walk that you're currently walking through, and then what I've walked through. It's just really kind of amazing. I was thinking about that the other day, that God's kind of given us this side-by-side walk, and maybe a little further ahead than the other one of us are, but but that's good too, because there's where He puts people in your life that have experienced things that help you walk through those walks, because you helped me from day one that I got here in the flip side of the other part. And then now He's got me in a position where I can kind of be like,
speaking.
Never thought I'd be like that. Hey, Pastor Manny,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, me coming to you saying, this is going on, what do I do?
Yeah. And so I just love how God works in that, though, because that's the part of the testimony as well. Yep. Because not everybody's going through what others are, but somebody is.
Right. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and say this. I think a lot of times we make witnessing so difficult, and it's really not. I think what we need to understand is, here we go, if we really want to see the world get to know Jesus, if we don't say anything, they would never hear about Jesus, and that's why, Jesus tells us to go and go into all the world and just share our testimony. It's not about preaching, which we do that well, but it's not about that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's just about making known your experience with Jesus Christ. And this is so cool about God, is that He will bring different people across your path, and all you have to do is share your story.
Yeah. I look at Jarrett Edwards, Jarrett and Rochelle Trent, and the Edwards are really good about coming alongside cancer patients. Jarrett, the patient, and Rebecca, the caretaker. And then you've got Rochelle and Jared, how they've gone through this walk, and her testimony as a mother, and all of the things that happened in the midst of all that, the miracles that God brought about in Brian's recovery, and the prayer team, and just the church as a whole, the testimonies that are sitting right in the seats here, and how you begin to know people on a different level through those testimonies. The 3 that were up here Sunday, things that I'd never heard before. I've worked with Pastor Bob for 12 years, and there's things that I didn't know, and I've heard him talk about being in the military, things I didn't know. And so it gives you a new appreciation, but it also gives you a new heart for God, knowing that He is a miracle worker. He brings, He parts the waters. He walks on the waters. So anything that you need, He has for you, not only through the Word, but through the fact that He has been a way maker in the lives of not only yourself, but others.
You're absolutely right. I can't much follow that. Go ahead, Pastor Manny.
Well, and just from a different perspective too is, as a leader of a ministry and watching us from, 45, 50 people on Vista to, where we're at with missionaries around the world. And Arizona Women of Faith coming out of here, a lot of your music and other witness and testimony coming out of here and other things that have been birthed here. And one of the things that you have to deal with in any ministry for it to grow is letting go and trusting God and His influence in people to where you don't know what's going to come out of this.
Right.
So you sit back and watch. Right. And for me, it's been like, that first conference, and you're like, well, okay, because I remember when you were coming and you were weeping every service, and then you end up coming on staff and that little hint of OCD just made you superb in your position and has brought us to a great place.
Irritating to him too, I'm sure.
I need her in this church.
Right.
Yeah. And what she has done for us and the level of competency and administrative excellence you brought us to is phenomenal. And that's just without any kind of influence of Arizona Women of Faith. And then to watch you put together the conference and watch it explode and to get to be part of that and the joy of that and seeing you go up to the Rockies and continue to progress up and then win it and then go and perform. I watched the CAB filled, literally filled to capacity, to see your music. And to see you perform it, and then see you go and perform in Nashville, at the Hard Rock Cafe, and and just other things. Watching how you're growing as far as your whole videography and what you're doing there, and of just leaving people alone and encouraging them, and seeing what God does. And and then watching Tanner as he goes to Bible college, and all of a sudden this order emerges that's like, you can't be doing this. You're just out of Bible college, and and Jarrett and just watching Aaron just settle into children's ministry and watching him just bloom and blossom, and you watch all these things. And, people are, I've had friends who come to Page, Arizona, and they're expecting one thing, and I've watched them light up when they come here and see what's going on here. Our worship team.
Witnesses.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's it.
Exactly.
And it's so funny because I had this military guy who, we went through chaplain school and stuff together, and he was kind of one of those cocky guys, and I just let him be him, and then he came to church here, and his jaw was just hanging down, and he's watching what's going on, and he was just blown away. And, but the thing is, I didn't do that. Right. I watched God do it. Right. And therefore I have a testimony. But, but it's about what has God done. Right. There are people who have a great plan and they do the plan and it works and they have these phenomenal ministries. And hats off. That's not me. Right. And I'm happy where I'm at.
But it is. This church is full of rock stars. And when I say rock stars, I don't mean these people that just shine like, you've mentioned a lot of great things, but the foundation of this church, I'll say, like the prayer ladies, they're in the background a lot.
Yep.
But I'll tell you, those ladies pray without ceasing. They are, in the church on Wednesdays and Fridays, and anything you call to have them pray for, they're praying for. We have a cleaning team that is just amazing. This church is always in tip-top shape.
Yep.
We have the children's ministry team. We have people who are so quiet and so in the background, but without their support, there wouldn't be a fulfillment. And I know you know this because you brag all the time, and not in a bad way. That you are definitely a pastor who is very proud of his people.
Yeah,
and I think
reason.
That's really what makes it work. I've worked here for 12 years, and so I see a part of you that no one else sees other than probably your wife, and that all of us see. And so there's a relationship here between all of us. And so we've seen the innermost parts of each other when it comes to the heart of things. Yeah. And so I know that you get judged from the outside as well as myself. But the word of the testimony and the witness that you bear is far above anything the enemy tries to do. Yeah. And I just, from my heart, want to tell you, I'm so appreciative for the man that you are. Because deep,
you'll make me cry.
deep, for 12 years, I have heard and seen you talk about the people of this church and how you love them and how you just have a heart for making sure they have the word of God and that they have the love of God. And so I appreciate you for that.
Thank you.
Because that's the biggest witness to me.
Well, I appreciate that very much because I'm just so
because that OCD person that showed up here needed some Jesus in her. and being on staff, you really helped get some Jesus in her.
Well, and we've all helped each other through our valleys and our failures and our faults and, and stuck with each other and seen each other through, different things. And but that's the way the church is supposed to be. Right. Is that we hang with each other and but we also have these just phenomenal people. Many of which who would not want us, would be appalled if we brought up their name because they don't want to be noticed. Absolutely. And what a blessing.
Right. And I just want to just end with this. Wherever you at. Your job, if you're a homemaker, whatever, you can be a witness for Jesus Christ. I think about DJ. All he does is just mess with trash. Yeah. But yet he's the biggest witness that I know.
Oh my gosh. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah. He just, it's like you go to dump your stuff and you know where he's at because there's like this beam coming down from heaven because there's DJ,
Right, exactly.
Because he just lit up.
Yeah. So again, let's not make it difficult. It's all about just sharing your story, what Jesus done for you.
And I'll encourage anybody that has a story that maybe that you feel like God's leading you to share, male or female. You're a male, talk to the Manny or Pastor Al. But if you're a female, I would like to hear that. Melissa and Tony are taking over Arizona Women of Faith. But God's laying some things on my heart, some new things on my heart. So please, I'm here as a woman of this church that would love to hear from you in any capacity. So come see us because those stories need to be told.
Yeah, and one of the things that we like to do is video stories and video your story. And then we have it on hand and we can tap that to encourage people at any given time. We can just work, to work right into a message. And really, I'd love to have a massive library of people's testimonies so that, especially when it's a familiar face and you hear their story, it's so powerful. And honestly, it's so good for you guys to hear those stories from someone other than me, or other than Al, the people that you see up here regularly. That's powerful. And every one of you has a story. And honestly, this is the whole thing about what Al was saying. I'm just kind of rewording what he said. But the truth of the matter is that, we witness by sharing our lives with one another. And it doesn't even have to be an intentional God story. But if you are living for God and they get to see your life, they will see God moving in your life, whether you say it specifically or not. So the real, the first step in being a witness is sharing your life with people freely and letting them see who you are. And consequently, we've had folks that have, really settled into this church, not because I set them down and told them my story, but because we just got to know each other and be friends, and they started coming to church, and then they settle in. And I mean, I'm not going to name names, but I think Georgia knows them, so, and so does Al. So keep that in mind. Share your life with those around you, because if you live for Jesus, you can't help but be a witness, even if you're in the pit. So God bless you. I hope you have a great week. Hopefully we'll see you Sunday.